Hi, we are here to talk about one of your assignments from last week. I think one of the biggest ways that we can learn is to look at the assignments that we've done and talk about what we did really well and what might have been missing. So I wanted to show you guys first, you read this essay, For a Teenager, Hijab is a Sign of Freedom. And it was written by Mina Shahinfar. I know I'm totally butchering that name. But she is a Muslim American student, and if you guys remember, it was about writing about wearing her headscarf and how that and feminism were not mutually exclusive to her. So I was looking at some of the things that you guys turned into me on Canvas, and I had a couple of concerns that I wanted to tell you about right away. First of all, most of you were really spot on with the purpose and the audience. But for some of you, for audience, you just wrote something really simple and short. And for a lot of you, for speaker, all you wrote was her name, or her name and that she was Muslim, or her name and that she was Muslim American, or those things plus that she's a teenager. And based on the examples that we went through and that we talked about when we did our notes, for speaker, there's a whole lot more to address than just that. Okay, so I want us to look at an example first. So this is what one of your peers turned in. And I just want you to look, it's the rhetorical situation analysis for the essay For Teenager Hijab, a Sign of Freedom. Or it's actually, I keep calling it an essay, but it's an article. So this was my prompt that I gave you guys. But other than that, everything on this page is something that the student wrote. Okay, and this is information that she pulled not only from this little tidbit, but from the article itself. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys, I'm not going to read this to you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a PDF of this on Canvas so that you guys can check it out at your own leisure. And I want you to just have this to reference back as an example of another student's work. Okay, and I want you to notice this. She uses formal language. She has very thorough explanations, and there's lots of depth of thought. Now, we're about to go through the article together on this video, and I want you to notice that this student and I didn't necessarily notice or write down the same exact things, and that's okay. I'm not looking for exact answers. I'm looking for your best analysis of the things that you can find, okay? So just wanted to show you that real quick, and I will put a snapshot of that on Canvas for you. So I'm going to start by just showing you guys, I made myself this little key right here. On the AP test itself, you can't have a colorful key like this, but you could maybe come up with some symbols that might work for you in the same way. Unfortunately, on the AP test, you're only allowed to bring a black or blue pen and a pencil. So you won't be able to have highlighting or color coding, but the AP test isn't the only component of this course, and so I absolutely will let you guys explore with different types of annotation all throughout the year, and then we'll just make sure that we practice a few times before the AP test with just what you're going to be able to have on that test. Okay, so I typically make myself some sort of key, and I am only looking for these things. Now, if I were looking for claims and evidence, I would be noticing and writing down a whole lot of other stuff. But if I'm really just looking for speaker purpose, audience context, and exigence, this is what I'm going to do with this. Okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to notice, it starts with, why would you wear that? Aren't you hot under it? Are you bald? And then there's this other question, why does your religion denigrate women? Now, that's a specific choice that the author makes to put in italics and to start out with these two questions. That's kind of a big deal. So we know that's telling us something. And so what I'm thinking about when I see those questions is I'm thinking about how Americans see Muslim women, and part of it is curiosity, and that's this part right here, right? And that's just honest curiosity. It's not offensive. It's asking someone to explain something that they don't necessarily have to explain. So it is asking for a little bit of labor from them, but it's not, the questions are not stereotyping or offensive or anything like that. But then when we get down here, this one is a little bit of stereotyping, right? It's having these expectations of someone's religion based on what they're wearing, and so that's a little bit jumping to conclusions. So I'm going to say that what she's doing here is she's giving us a lot of context, okay? And then we don't have to write a ton. All I'm going to write is something to help me remember why I annotated that, okay? So helps reader understand American, let's say, attitude toward Muslim women. And then we have the two sort of different types. This one was curiosity and this one was stereotyping, so I'm just going to write those both down. That tells us a lot about the context. That's a closed parenthesis, it's kind of ugly. That tells us a lot about the context of the time period. What was going on in the two middle 2016 when she wrote this about sort of sentiment, American sentiment toward Muslims. Okay, and then so I continue to read, and it says, such questions are among those I field most every day. Other people see my headscarf but cannot see why I make such a religious commitment. As a Muslim American, I frequently have to explain my hijab. I don't mind. I love that some people are curious about why I stand out. So we just learned a whole lot about her, right? Ooh, one of my pins is going crazy. All right, so I'm noticing she wears the headscarf and she says religious commitment here. So this is telling me, and right here, Muslim American. So this is telling me that she is religious and that she is female and that she's Muslim and that she's American. And I am writing in the wrong color, but I'll just go over this. Look, we can turn that red pink. Okay. There we go. I changed that to match this. Okay. And then when she says, so that's kind of the really concrete stuff that we learn right at the very beginning. Then when she says, I frequently have to explain my hijab, and then she says, I don't mind. I don't mind. I love that some people are curious, right? That I don't mind tells us something about her personality. And in my opinion, it tells us that she's kind of patient and she's open. I don't know about you, but when people question my life decisions and my life choices, I don't always want to have a big, long conversation about that, right? And so the quote right there, I don't mind. Sorry, I'm getting tangled with my words because my cat is in the way. It makes me see her as a patient and open person. Okay, I'm going to keep reading. But nothing could have left me more fascinated or utterly shocked than this recent question. I felt offended, disappointed, and heartbroken. So the question, which we've already read, is why does your religion denigrate women? So right here, you guys, if you're not noticing that this is the exigence, then I don't think you're reading closely. Because remember, his exigence was, why in this moment is this person writing? Not the context, not the larger experience, but not what's going on in the larger time period, but what made her sit down and write this essay. So if it is a graduation speech, the exigence is graduation. And if it's the valedictorian giving the speech, then it's also that she graduated top of her class or he graduated top of his class, right? So for this one, the exigence is this question got asked, she felt offended, disappointed, and heartbroken, and then she decided to write this, right? By the way, when we talk about controversial issues like this, I want to remind you of one thing. We're not celebrating necessarily the words that the author is saying. If we agree with them and we like them, then we can. But I'm not asking you to agree with anything she's saying about feminism or wearing a hijab or being Muslim American or any of those things. All I'm asking you to do is analyze what she's doing. Okay, so even if we do say positive things about the way she made her argument or about what seems to be her personality, it's not Miss Bohannon saying, I am teaching you that you need to be this way or anything like that. And I know we talked about this when we went over our syllabus, but I just want to make it super clear that we are going to talk about controversial issues, but never ever am I asking you to agree with anything. I'm asking you to analyze it. Okay, so we have exigence. You know, I could keep going, and I am going to keep going just a little bit longer. I kind of thought about doing the whole thing, but I don't think I'm going to. I think you're probably getting the idea at this point. But I'm going to skip this paragraph where she talks about the girl that she met. I think there's an interesting rhetorical choice to talk about there, but we're not there yet. We're only looking at the rhetorical situation. And so I'm going to skip to where I see where she says, when outsiders look at the politics and culture of the Middle East, they inevitably see overwhelming male dominance, but culture and religion are not one and the same. And I think this plus I frequently have to explain my hijab and then maybe some other things, I would connect all of those and I would talk about audience here. Because clearly her audience is her intended audience. Now remember, intended audience and actual audience can be different. Like when Rashima Melsing gave her valedictorian speech, she had this intended audience, which was all of the adults at her school, and it was all of her peers. But then her valedictorian speech kind of went viral, so she had this unintended actual audience that was kind of worldwide, right? So, but her intended audience, Mina Shaheen Far, in this essay is outsiders and their misconceptions, right? And I want to make one more note. We've talked a lot about civil discourse and about how to have a conversation about something without completely losing your cool, or how to use evidence that is backed with how to make claims that are backed with evidence that are really from credible sources and things like that. And I want to point out that nowhere in here, while she is talking about misconceptions, and she does allude to some stereotyping, nowhere in here does she get angry or accusatory or call names. And so she's doing a really good job here of keeping her audience in mind, because she knows that they're a little bit they're lacking in knowledge here and they have some misconceptions, but she's not saying that they have terrible intent or that they are bad people. And so I think that's a really wonderful example to see as we talk about civil discourse. Okay, so I could go on, and in fact, I'll show you guys real quick. I did actually do this at school on Friday just to kind of give myself some notes to go by. And so I have some notes about purpose, a lot of notes about purpose on the back. And that's where she starts connecting that hijab and feminism, and to educate about how she can wear the hijab and be a feminist. And so up here, I kind of wrote a purpose statement to educate readers who view hijab through a stereotypical lens, and to argue that her hijab can be both religious and feminist. And what I want to point out to you here is, remember our purpose statement has to be to plus an infinitive, so to plus a verb. To educate, and then it was a two-part, so to educate and to argue. So I just wanted to show you the purpose statement. I'll go ahead and take a little snapshot of this and post this for you too, if you want to look at it. And that's all. I just kind of wanted to catch you guys up on what that assignment should have looked like. And so I think some of you probably could go back and make a lot of edits and really improve what you did. I'm not sure whether or not yet if we're going to do that, but I want you to keep this in mind for your next assignment where you're analyzing the rhetorical situation. That speaker is not just one word. Speaker is an entire paragraph, or at least 4 or 5 bullet points about who is writing this. Not just what we know from the little blurb Miss Bohannon gave, and not just the super obvious concrete things, but also some of the less obvious, less concrete things. Okay, thanks for listening.